Well, I know Forest lost, but Ange is gone already. 8 games in, 39 days later, Ange Postecoglou was sacked by Nottingham Forest. The club confirming the decision in a statement 20 minutes after the full-time whistle. The statement was ironically 39 words long, the same amount of days that Ange's tenure had lasted. And off he went. All Forest said was Nottingham Forest Football Club can confirm that after a series of disappointing results and performances, Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duty as head coach with immediate effect. The club will make no further comment at this time. Now all eyes on Sean Dyche. Did it surprise you in any way, Martin, or was there a sense of deja vu for you?
Well,
with Mr. Evangelos Marinakis involved?
Well, I got a lot more time. I got 19 games. Yeah, is it a surprise? No, not in this day and age. Is it a surprise anymore? You needed results immediately. Is that giving a manager enough time to do things? Absolutely not.
You feel the same, Simon? That, hang on a minute, how can you do that after such a short space of time?
Well, I mean, he has done it, so that's how he can do it.
Yeah.
Whether he should have done it in quite, I thought, the ungraceful way, which is, straight after the game, I don't think that needed to be done that way. I'm always in the camp of saying, you sack somebody, they get sacked. How do you want to do it? You want to do it with a bouquet of roses. But I did think that, straight after the game, that being done in that fashion probably wasn't the most graceful way of doing it. They didn't have Ange Postecoglou from the get-go. It's another example of a group of fans, to some extent, not wanting a manager, and they didn't want him. They wanted Nuno Espirito Santo. They gave the owner dispensation because he is who he is and he's done what he's done with his football club. And then Postecoglou spends his entire time, seemingly, in an absolute bun fight. Every press conference he goes into, he's on the front foot. So there was almost an inevitability, if you watch the game, quite how Nottingham Forest conspired not to score goals in that game. Yes. It was almost beggars belief. And if we really believe, the moment you saw Marinakis leave the stadium, you know the man. The moment you saw him leave his seat in the 60 minutes, you knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is... I personally don't think it's the way to operate. And I was an owner that fired managers. I think there are better ways to do it than that. But he does things his own way. He's his own man. And I feel a little bit for Postecoglou. But he is sometimes the architect of his own downfall. He picks fights, and then he loses these fights.
Well, Simon, it's a good point you make, because as recently as Friday, going into the game, Ange Postecoglou spoke to the media gathering, and it became a bit of a monologue about his record. This was Ange.
I just don't fit. Not here, just in general. If you look at it through the prism of, I'm a failed manager who's lucky to get this job, and you're smirking at me, but that's what's been said, right? And I can find the print that's actually that said. Then, of course, this first 5 weeks looks like this guy's under pressure. I came into the Premier League 2 years ago. I took over Tottenham, Spursy Tottenham. I was told by the chairman at the time, this club has to win a trophy. Has to win a trophy. He said, we've tried to bring winners in. Jose Antonio hasn't worked. We need something different. I was slightly offended by that because I see myself as a winner. But all I've heard since I've finished at Tottenham is that we finished 17th last year. So if you look at it from that prism of we finished 17th, then yeah, I'm a failed manager who was lucky to get another opportunity. But again, if I have to explain why we finished 17th, really, some basic, it doesn't have to be too in-depth. Just have a look at the last 5 or 6 team sheets of us in the league last year and see what I prioritised, who was on the bench, who was playing. So yes, we finished 17th. If people think that's a reflection of me and my coaching, then again, I think they're looking at it through the prism of I just don't fit. So we get to the current space where there's a different story to tell, that maybe I'm not a failed manager who was lucky to get this job, but maybe I'm a manager that if you give them time, the story always ends the same. At all my previous clubs, it ends the same with me and a trophy.
Martin, what I would say there is that section of audio we played was edited down. There was a lot more to it. So, 8 games before, when he appointed Postecoglou, Marinakis said, we're bringing in a coach who has a proven and consistent record of winning trophies. His desire to build something special with us at Forest makes him a fantastic person to help us on our journey and achieve consistency in all our ambitions. Who's more at fault for the mess that has come about? Postecoglou or Marinakis?
Well, let's take the first point. The first point is that he does this monologue. And Do you know, sometimes as a manager, you feel that you have to almost defend yourself. And that went on a long time, I believe, and probably too long. And on reflection, I'm quite sure he thought, oh, listen, I shouldn't have said this. But I remember Jose Mourinho, who's a serial winner, great manager. If the world ended tomorrow, would be go down as one of the greats. And him having to defend himself one time. And I remember him shouting, respect,
yes,
as he left the press conference.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does get to you as a manager. You feel as if, well, you know, you've actually... But if you had said to Tottenham Hotspur last year, you will actually be in the Champions League the following year, you would have taken that all day long. Now, they didn't know what sort of circuitous route they were going to get into the Champions League, losing a load of league matches, but still ending up winning the Europa League. But it is... I've still have to try and come to terms with this here. The results were very, very poor from Tottenham. They lost a lot of matches, but they still won a trophy that got them into the Champions League. And I thought that's what you were in the game to do, is to actually win some trophies.
But they finished 17th.
But they finished 17th.
So you've got to balance that out.
Balancing it out. Yeah, that's the point. Now, getting back to the defence of himself, yeah, I remember doing that once in the Republic of Ireland, and 20 minutes afterwards I come into my room, I put myself in a dark corner and thought, why did I bother? You know, so, because you know what? No one cares. It doesn't matter about you defending yourself. No one wants to listen to it. You're in a bit of trouble. You haven't won the games. You know that you're under pressure at the end of it all. But the pressure came, and I think that Simon mentioned this at the top. The pressure came from him not being wanted at the football club to begin with. So you're on the back foot immediately. Now, and strangely enough, Nuno actually won them over by his results, because he wasn't completely popular when he went in, because they had a popular manager before that in Cooper, in that sense. So I suppose the argument would be that Postecoglou would probably think, just give me a little bit more time. This idea about changing a side that really played on the counter attack a lot of time, and that worked for Nottingham Forest greatly last season. And then they wanted to have a wee bit more possession this time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so sure that, as I said, I was there at the game against Michelin, where the crowd were actually booing at half-time. The own crowd were booing at half-time.
And you weren't having that, were you?
Well,
you felt that was hard on Ange.
I think that's hard. I do genuinely think that. Well, I've been there. I've been there when the crowd were booing for me, you know. And I was at Leicester City, couldn't win a game to save my life to early on, and the crowd baying for blood. So you feel as if, for a manager at that stage who hasn't really got his feet under the table.
But 8 games, Simon. I mean, you've got to look for the positives, if there are any in there.
I mean, it's the owner's fault. It's the owner's fault. Because whilst everything has nuance and context, and there's no absolutism in life besides death and taxes, but the fact of the matter is that you had a manager that was going along quite nicely for you, and for whatever reason, you've managed to engineer, orchestrate, or be part of a fallout. Now, whether that's because you were running around in the summer wanting a different style of play and it reached the manager's ears, which is the rumour that's doing the rounds, which is ultimately he was looking for a different style of play. He was going behind Spirito Santo's back and looking at perhaps batting his eyes at Postecoglou.
Yeah.
And that's why you got the sort of outlook you got from Nuno Espirito Santo in press conferences, signing his own death warrant, for want of a better expression, in terms of the managerial role. So you look at it and say, you've got a group of players that could clearly play one way, and that way was enhanced and utilised by Nuno Espirito Santo. You bring someone in that wants to play a different brand of football. The players aren't responding to it or aren't producing outcomes from it. So it's the owner's fault. And if you're going to take him out after 8 games because you're frustrated with the fact that you can't make this pivot on a sixpence, in an ideal world, you'd like to be like a character out of Tron. You'd like to go, vroom, yes, we can do that. We can do a handbrake turn and go into a different style of play instantaneously. In the real world, if you've got players that have been successful in playing in a certain way, which obviously match the capabilities of the squad because they could do it well, and that's why Nuno Espirito Santo played it that way.
Yeah.
And then you want to bring in Ange Postecoglou in the way that he decides to play, and then you want to give him 5 minutes, and then you want to bin him. So the fault lies with the owner, but the owner has got currency. So if he wants to bring in Sean Dyche, I like Sean Dyche. Is that a progressive appointment? I don't think so. I don't think particularly. But the fact of the matter is it now because they're looking down the barrel of thinking we're in jeopardy in this division after 8 games?
Yeah. But on the one hand, can you criticise the decision-making of the owner, but also praise his decisive ruthlessness on the other? Simon, you say he is to blame for this mess, and it is a mess. But that is the question, isn't it? You know, he's been quick to pivot. Can you also praise his ruthlessness in the process?
Well, I mean, I don't think making decisions, I don't see it as particularly ruthless. I don't characterise a conversation that way. I don't characterise having been a businessman and run businesses and made decisions. I don't look at them as ruthless. I just think they're decisions to be made. You do them for the right reasons. You try to do them in the best fashion. I don't think it's necessary to do it the way he did it. I mean, there's no great way to fire anybody, is there? But the fact of the matter is doing so. I was watching Peter Crouch talking, you know, with the presenter Lindsay on TNT, and bang, out comes that announcement that he's been fired. And I think, well, what's the benefit of that? You know, the guy could be allowed to leave the ground. You could be allowed to just let it settle down.
But what was the benefit of allowing Graham Potter to speak to the media on the Friday, going into a game that they ended up not seeing because you get binned?
Well, they must have had their reasons.
You were all for that.
I wasn't. I just wasn't in the characterisation that you were putting on it. What I wasn't saying is that I don't know why they put him into the press conference. Maybe they hadn't fully done the deal with the manager that was coming in the same way that I put Kit Simons into the dugout against Reading, knowing that I was going to employ Ian Dowie on Monday. Sometimes you have to make decisions on the greater scheme of things rather than on the individual. It's the sum of all its parts. The best interests of the collective sometimes have to supersede the best interests of what people perceive to be the behaviour towards an individual. And if you're in a position of influence and power, you have to make those decisions. And other people that aren't in those positions of influence and power don't know what it's like to be in those situations, so they'll turn around and say, oh, that's callous, that's ruthless, that's not the way to operate. In a situation where I've been, I don't like the fact that he fired him straight after the game. I don't think it's necessary. And for it to be in the media, I think ultimately he could have let it settle, phoned the manager up when the manager left the ground, gone, right, we've run our course here. We've run our course. And that conversation could have been had between the pair of them.
Are you with that, Martin?
But in the end,
I'm with that. I'm not with the one before where you allow somebody to do a press conference knowing he's not going to be the manager on the Saturday. I totally disagree with that, whether the boy's in place or not. If he's not in place by that time, allow the manager to be the manager on Saturday then, if that's the case. Don't do the press conference on the Friday. But
just out of curiosity, why? Are you getting paid? Or are you doing it as a charity thing?
I'm not. Because why put him in?
Because you guys have got this idea that you're entitled. You're entitled to a level of respect and a level of courtesy that often you don't extend yourselves. You're the first person to turn around and say when you didn't like something with your owner, you threw your toys out of the pram.
Yeah.
There's a courtesy that goes both ways.
Yeah.
So sometimes in a position of influence, I'm sure there's been circumstances where you've told a player or done something with a player knowing you're going to do something potentially different further down the line. And you do what you have to do in the moment you have to do it in. And if you're running something with all the responsibilities that go with it, sometimes you have to discount the individual's moment of what you perceive to be respect.
No, I think you've got that totally wrong.
In your view?
Well, of course, in my view. Well, who else is not?
Well, I wonder if you're talking about the collective.
No, I'm not talking about the collective. I'm talking about you mentioned about manners. First of all, you said about you didn't agree with the way Marinakis dealt with the situation out of your word respect, maybe for the manager in that sense. You might going to do it. You might do it on a Sunday. You might do it late on a Saturday night, but don't do it. Yeah, well, it is.
It's optics, really.
Okay. Yeah, all right. But it's the same point. So I'm not affording myself all of this respect, not at all. It's just a manner of doing it. You said to me way back to maybe about 2 years ago that you eventually, when you sacked the managers, you did it yourself.
Always.
You did it yourself. Well, that's nice. Well, he didn't do it himself, so I don't think that's great. That's not respectful. I mean, in fairness, he didn't do it to me either. But at the end of it all, that. Too bad. I'm not wildly worried.
I mean, Martin, do you ever get sacked in the right way?
No, if you know it's inevitable, that's fine. There's no such thing as being sacked in the right way. You said that yourself, Sam. But the point I'm making is this here, that there is actually probably a way to do it. If you've actually employed someone, and you've actually participated in the negotiations with him, which I'm sure he did, and then I think it's his right to go and sack him himself. That's the point, and not do it. It doesn't matter. Eventually,
that's a matter of principle, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you have felt, Martin, if it was you and not Ange at the weekend, and a statement comes out, you're gone, and the game's barely over?
Well, I can laugh about it now, but Marinakis himself personally didn't sack me. He allowed the chief executive and the director of football, the former swimming instructor from Athens. They sacked me at the time, and that's fine. I'm still in my office 24 minutes later when they announce the new manager. Just allow me a bit of time to get out of the office. That's all.
You were still in the building when they announced the new guy.
Absolutely, still in the building. So there's precedence there, So that's not a problem.
It's an interesting perspective. I'm sure Elon Musk doesn't go around sacking people. He gets his chief executive to do it when he's running the social media businesses. In football, there's an expectation that you'll get handled in a certain way. And going to the point that you're making about the press conference on the Friday with Graham Potter, do I think it's an ideal thing to send a manager into a press conference with the circumstances knowing that he's likely to be... No, of course I don't. But I also... Hang on, I haven't finished. No,
stop there. You said it. That's
right.
I don't. Of course you
I don't have them. Here's the nuance. And here's the nuance, right? I've got a press conference coming up, and I've got the world's media there, and I'm not going to give them something that's going to cause me to have uproar instantaneously. So I have two evils. Do I have... managers and going to the press conference, boom, full-on explosion from the media all over the place, what's happening at West Ham. So I'd rather sacrifice the individual for the collective, knowing that individual, who I'm going to march out the door, is going to get paid by me for doing nothing.
But they're paid by you. You keep coming back to that paid by you.
Yes,
it doesn't
there's
matter.
your courtesy. There's your respect.
There's
your respect.
You would have given him the contract, so you're entitled to pay him then until the moment he leaves the football club.
The reasons why he's being shuffled out the door is because he hasn't done his job.
Well, that's fine.
And there you are.
That's okay.
But you're saying you would have thrown him to the dogs, Potter. You would have thrown him in
I'm
there.
not throwing him to the dogs. What I'm doing is I'm asking him to hold a press conference or putting him into a press conference because it's the lesser of two evils. Which is the evil that's going to affect me the most? The manager's sensitivities or the media being able to having a field day with no manager in a press conference? No. I will take the manager's sensitivities as the lesser concern all day, every day of the week, and twice on Sunday.
I'll tell you what you should have done. I'll tell you what you should have done. You should have taken the press conference yourself. That's the point.
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah, that would be much better.
As
make more sense than some of the bloody rubbish that you lot utter.
As most chairmen I know who do not want managers at all, they just want a tracksuit. They want to manage themselves.
Oh, there it is. There's the bias.
But you are saying, Simon,
you must get over this inferiority complex.
You are saying
terrible.
You would have done what Sullivan did with Potter at West Ham and stuck him in there, knowing he was probably going to go at the week before the game at the weekend, about 12 hours later. But you think what Marinakis did to Ange,
what I would have done
was ungracious.
What I would
Excellent, Jim.
What I would have done in the circumstances, because there was no need. There was no need to fire him after the game. You can fire him on Sunday. There was a need to hold a press conference. If you abandon the press conference, you'd have a situation. If you stick nobody in the press conference, you'd have a situation. If you stuck yourself in the press conference, you'd have a situation. So you took the lesser two evils. The Marinakis situation is completely different because there was no calling. You could have let Ange Postecoglou do his media business, talk to them, and then gone, listen, the next morning, like I did with Steve Coppell, listen, I can't stand the sight of you. Let's part company.
Yeah, the first question at the press conference, the journalist would ask, Mr. Jordan, you're here on your own today.
Yes.
Would we deduce the fact that the manager is no longer...
What does this suggest?
I feel like I've been on my own for such a long time anyway.
So much to get into here. And I must admit, when Liverpool got level with a few minutes to go, I thought Liverpool are going to win this. They'll win it. But no, it was Harry Maguire, no less, and Manchester United who had the last laugh. And Manchester United condemned Liverpool to a fourth consecutive defeat. My goodness me, has Liverpool's air of control and invincibility gone? Does what started as a perfect title defence now look somewhat brittle? So what happened? Arne Slot post-match, this is how he saw it.
I think if you play United with so many quality players they have, brought in a few new ones this summer, and if they come to us in a low block, playing so many lone balls, then the last thing you would want is going 1-0 down, because that gives them even more belief. And if you would have told me that we were 1-0 down against a United team that played in the style they did, and you would have told me that we would have created 8, 9, 10 open chances, then I would have said to you that I don't think that is possible. But it was possible. So the second thing that went wrong is that from all the chances we got, we only scored 1 goal. And I've said it in Holland many times, and maybe I've said it here as well, it's almost impossible to win a big game of football. And Liverpool is a big game with so many quality players on the pitch, to win it with a negative set-piece balance.
We'll get to United. Martin listening to Slot very intently there. Amorim, meantime, and Manchester United. Amorim's the first United manager to win at Anfield since 2016, succeeding where Mourinho, Solskjaer, Ranić and Ten Hag had all failed. But on Liverpool, Martin, Isak, Wirtz, Van Dijk, Kerkez, Salah, are there too many variables not quite clicking?
Yeah, all those players you mentioned are below par at the moment. Wirtz has still to come to terms with the Premier League. A very fine player when he was in Germany, but really has found it very difficult. Some people do. There's still time for him to produce the ability that he's capable of. But overall, too many players for just at this moment, and it's continued for 4 consecutive losses. Too many players at this minute for Liverpool have not reached the heights of last season. McAllister being another one. But so it's a blip. That's all it is, really. They've lost the games. They could easily have maybe they could have scored a few goals yesterday in the game. What I'm a bit disappointed with is that, well, more than a bit, is that some of the comments that Slot, who has proved himself an excellent manager, coming out and saying that very difficult to play against a low block and teams that play long balls. Kind of reminds me at times of Arsene Wenger way back when I was against him. Every time that a team got a result against Arsenal, it was always because they played very defensively and they played the very, very, very long ball. So what you do is this here. That's your job. Your job as a manager is to break it down. Is to whatever it is. Sorry,
simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
and you are responsible for your own team. That's the point.
Yeah.
You whatever tactics that the other team may employ, it's you. You have to beat them.
Well, people are coming in right, left and centre now, Martin. Some Liverpool legends. Jamie Carragher, for one, because he's been talking about Mo Salah. We're at a stage now with Mo Salah where he shouldn't be playing at every game. We're at that stage now. Salah shouldn't be guaranteed a starter next week. Is any player, whatever their status, undroppable?
Well, there are a number of players over the course of years who are undroppable. Can you imagine leaving Messi out of a side, who'd maybe gone 3 or 4 matches without scoring, or was it 3 or 4 minutes? I'm not sure. But listen, there's players. If you're not in great form, you are not entitled to start in a side. I'm not so sure that Jamie, I've got a lot of time for him, but I'm not so sure that he should be picking the team. Now, what is, it's up to the manager. And if the manager thinks that Salah was unstoppable last season and he has not reached those heights, it's another year on, he's another year in. I don't think it's anything to do with signing a new contract or anything like this here. He's another year older. Really as simple as that. But you could say that about a number of the players. They have won matches at the beginning of the season where they won late games and things have gone well for them. Now it's a 4-game blip, and they have to fight. They have to fight this through, and they have to find a way to go and win a football game. But if you start as a manager, I don't think you want to be putting messages out. Really, if you're saying it's difficult to defend a low block,
was it not a fair analysis? Low blocks and long balls. Was Slot not right?
No, it's not.
Is that not what they faced?
No, it's what they faced. You still have to beat them. You have to beat them. It doesn't matter. You're not. Sorry, should that mean that you should have gone into Amorim's dressing room beforehand and said, "Oh, excuse me, please don't play the low block or the long ball here because we want to try and win this game." It's just, sorry, don't do this.
What you're reading into what Slot said there at the end.
Well, he said a similar thing about Burnley.
Yeah,
he said a similar thing about Burnley. When Burnley played and played in a certain way, of course, Burnley would want to try and get a result against Liverpool. Liverpool were a better side, established Premier League side, Premier League champions. I'm sure that Burnley don't want to open the game up so Liverpool can bash them so Slot can be happy. Difficulty is you can't make that argument against Palace because Palace hammered them. Tried to make a different argument. He tried to make an argument in that game that Liverpool, actually in that game, Liverpool could have been 5-0 down and were lucky not to be 5-0 down in that particular game. Yeah. He's in a difficult moment. It's the first difficult moment he's had. I made the argument last week. It's not much of an argument, but I've made the point that he didn't have to do much last year besides turn up and make sure he kept the status quo and the dressing room happy. And didn't make too many changes. People take the edge off. He took the edge off the way the Klopp played. There was less rock and roll. It was more subdued, and they won the Premier League. I would say they won the Premier League because other sides weren't as good as they had been previously. But Liverpool deserved to win the Premier League. Now we've got a side that's been, to some part, slightly reassembled because players have gone. Key players have gone. Tragedies have hit the football club, and they've brought in a new set of players. I know this is mean-spirited, and I'm quite glad to see Isak not hitting the ground running. I like to have a little bit of duress because of his conduct at Newcastle. But Slot will answer the questions.
Yeah.
But like most football managers, when it comes on top, you see them find a different, rather than the cool, collected, balanced, objective, it'll be okay sort of attitude. Now you start to see in the narratives coming in because you're under a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
It's got to be the same. It's got to be the Rudyard Kipling mentality. You treat both imposters the same. You took all the glory. When you got a hard moment, don't start making it about what other teams, because there's a dig at Man United. There's a dig in there about Man United. Who would have imagined that a Man United team would have been prepared to play this way to win a game?
Yeah, but Simon, is there an awkward irony that 400 million quid later, Slot's team now looks worse than the one he inherited from Klopp?
I suppose you could. I mean, obviously you could portray it that way. I mean, we know that £400 million was spent over three transfer windows. It happened to be spent in one, but it was actually spent over three transfer windows in terms of didn't buy anything in the first two and bought load in the third. Sorry.
Yeah,
there was reasons behind it.
Income slot splitters, Ekitike, Isak.
Yep. Of course,
Verts,
but some of these
fortunes,
and that's the price you pay in the market for the best players. Unfortunately, this is the cost implications of it. But also, there were players like Lucas Diaz that probably you wouldn't have wanted to go, but he wanted to go. Obviously, the tragedy with Diego Jota made a decision for him. So circumstances are the one question that needs to be asked and answered is why they didn't buy a centre half. Because if you look at the manner in which they're defending now, you look at Virgil van Dijk yesterday in that game. Yeah. He looked uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. Fair point.
You wouldn't find him in previously.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I think there's still plenty of time for those players that you talked about, the players that they've signed at the football club, because they are very good players to kick on. Absolutely. Yeah, they are. And the only thing I will take slight dispute with Simon there is the fact that Liverpool won the league last season because the other teams didn't get up to it. I think if you won the league over 38 games, I think you've deserved to win the league. And I think you step in because...
you categorically deserve to win the league, but the best versions of the other sides weren't on offer, I thought, at times.
That's true. That is true. But Liverpool weren't accountable for that.
That's true. They're accountable they deserve to win the league.
Absolutely.
You're in the long grass this morning, Martin, waiting for him to... And you're pouncing at every moment.
No, I'm not. There's lots of things I agree with Simon about. Absolutely. And a few things I don't mind...
Well,
listen, he knows his stuff about the ownership of football clubs. It's the number of managers he's bombed out that I feel as if I'm comfortable with in terms of an argument.
What did we witness at Anfield yesterday? We witnessed Manchester United leaving with all 3 points. My goodness me. We haven't seen that in a long time. Ruben Amorim is the first United manager to win at Anfield since 2016. On Liverpool, what are we witnessing? Where has their air of control and invincibility gone? Never buy teeth from a catalogue. Where has it gone? And are Liverpool fans worried in any shape or form? Paul was there, and as a big Liverpool fan, Paul, good afternoon. You concerned at this time, mate?
Hey guys, thanks for the show. Brilliant show as always. I'm just travelling home from the game with my son. We were there yesterday.
Wow. Where is home, Paul?
We're heading back down to Caution, just near Bath, actually, down south.
Bath. Oh, and he's just going into a tunnel, and that's all we need. There, you're back with us, Paul. What do you want to say?
Lost them. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're with us.
Oh, thank you. So, sorry, just about Liverpool yesterday, obviously, a lot of media talk about, maybe a little bit of negativity surrounding Liverpool at the moment. I think, on any other day yesterday, Gakpo scores a hat-trick, at least. He had probably 5 really good opportunities. He hit the post twice, the one off the crossbar, the header at the end. There's a Salah opportunity that he puts into the cop. Isak had 2 good chances. Obviously, he's not firing yet, but would have given a complete different narrative to the game yesterday. I heard your betting guy earlier suggest that Manchester United were deserved winners. I must have watched a different game because, yes, okay, they got a fairly fortuitous late ball in there from Fernandes, and the last person you want it to land on is probably Maguire. But Liverpool should have been away and clear by then. I think with the opportunities that we had. Slot's playing very attacking football at the moment. Yes, we are a bit more open at the back, but I think that'll come. The new boys will bed in. I'm sure of that.
So it's all about fine margins at the moment for you, then, Paul, is it?
Yeah, I think it is. Gakpo played really well off the left, but like I said, hits both posts, one off the crossbar as well. One of those goes in, 2 of those goes in. It's a completely different game.
Okay, and Paul,
also,
go on.
We also need to say that Alisson Becker's missing at the moment. I think he probably saves the Mbeumo one early on. You missed his dispatch from his feet, and if you go and take Raya out of Arsenal's side or Donnarumma out of Man City's side, they're going to be a very, very different team. So maybe a little bit of credit to that towards Slot as well.
Okay, listen, Paul, go safe in your journey back to Bath. John's a big Liverpool fan. John, Martin O'Neill's alongside Simon. What do you want to say?
Hello, boys. You okay? Yeah.
Good, mate. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I want to come on. I don't want to sound like Slot out and all that, because I've drove home from away games over the years. You hear all these fans coming on, calling for managers. I'm not like that. I just think Slot is yet to convince me as a manager, because I think last year, Simon's right. We were basically given the title last year because City and Arsenal didn't play well, and Liverpool's football last year was not good. And one thing that alarms me is Slot, like, well, there's a couple of things that alarm me, but one of the ones, Slot came out last year and said, I will buy a number 9. I have number 9s, basically, and I'm words to that effect in my team. But the football we play doesn't suit a number 9. If you put Fowler, Drogba, Shearer, proper number 9s in a role in that team, they wouldn't score to the ratio that they did. And he needs to have some brick walls and drop. Doesn't matter if it's nearly £300 million worth of talent. He's got to say to Isaac, Wirtz and Kerkers, especially that Kerkers is atrocious. You're not in the team, basically. I feel like they're playing them. I know Wirtz has been on the bench, but of the three, I've been Wirtz's biggest critic, but I think he's got a role. I think he could play a Bobby Firmino role, but I just don't think, we spent £140 million on Isaac when Ekitike hit the ground running, and he showed why we bought that Isaac. And I think we overpaid for him anyway.
All right, John. I mean, is this not bound to happen, Martin? When they're not winning, that they'll call out some of the big name signings.
Well, John, I must admit I'm really surprised. First of all, you said that you haven't been convinced by the manager yet that they were given the title. I've had this conversation with Simon. They weren't given the title. They were, they worked for it. And just because it seemed seamless that they go in, he steps in from a football club, he had to make some sort of changes to the way that they played the game. I know it was a bit of up and at them with Klopp, which was great and which I loved, I must admit. But at the end of it all, they've won the title. They deserve to win the title, and that's it. After 38 games, they were by far the best side. So if you're not convinced with that there, then you'll take a lot of convincing about other things here at this minute. And I think that the players at the moment, some of them are playing a bit below par, but I think that Paul, the first caller's come in, and I think he summed the game up admirably. Absolutely, that if they score 2 or 3 goals, they've hit the post a couple of times, it could have been a totally different outcome. Really as simple as that there. My argument earlier on was with speaking to Slot as a manager. I don't think he needs to say about the defensive abilities or non-abilities of Manchester United, the long ball, the low block, all those things. Keep that aside. Just leave that out. Sometimes when you've lost a couple of games, you start to blame other things for it. Just leave that out of the equation. Liverpool will get themselves together again, and they will be big. They'll still be big challenges for the league. And maybe if they take the league next season with 2 successive league titles, you might change your mind about the manager. Yeah,
I think Martin's right, Simon. On any other day, Liverpool would have hit the back of the net more than once.
Sure, and by the same token, Bruno Fernandes should have scored another goal for Man United to put them 2-0 up.
True.
I mean, I look at the Slot thing and say, no one is disputing that Liverpool deserved to win the title last year, because after 38 games, you win the title. You deserve to win it. You're the winner. What we're talking about is the nature of the challenge and how far you were pushed and how far you might be pushed this year and what questions you might be asked this year, because you were asked questions by PSG, out you went of the Champions League. You were asked questions by Newcastle, and out you went of the League Cup final. Now, in the league, the questions you can be asked are who's going to push you and how psychologically hard are you going to be pushed by the opposition nipping at your heels all the way. Man City fell off a cliff. Arsenal weren't the same competitive force that we thought they were going to be. Chelsea weren't really in the mix post-Christmas. So Liverpool didn't have the same rivals in the mix that other people have had previously. There wasn't this Liverpool-Man City rivalry. Now, this year, for a variety of reasons, Slot's got to... He hasn't got the luxury of inheriting a team that was good to go. It's a plug and play. Yeah, you've got to sophisticate it, and maybe your voice has got to be heard. But you had the wonderful embarrassment of riches of not having to do very much, not even buy a bloody player.
Yeah.
This time round, you're now having to do something different. The competition has got stiffer. And we will see how good Slot is when he doesn't quite get the same opportunities he might have had last year.
Absolutely. There's Danny. Hello. Danny's a Manchester United fan. What about us? We won it. You're right. Danny, this was Amorim.
No, I want you guys to continue with the narrative that you are. So don't change that. That is best for me. So I will not now increase the goal or whatever. No, you continue now with the same narrative. What we need to do is try to win 3 games in a row, and then forget about the top 4, top 6. We already said that we need to go to Europe, but this doesn't change nothing. We are the same team that we were 90 minutes ago. The way people see the team is different, but we are the same team. So we have a lot to do. We had some luck in the few moments. We had an amazing spirit. We need to take all of that to the next game. So the goal is always the same.
See, I like that, Martin. Amorim's basically said post-match, everybody's got to keep their feet in the ground. I mean, it's the first time they won back-to-back league games. He's right.
Of course he's right. Yeah, Manchester United have won a big game, and that's great, and great for confidence, but that's all it is. It is, Harry Maguire said last night, it's 3 points. Yes, the significance of the 3 points is that you won at Anfield, and that gives you an enormous boost. But it's 6 points from 2 games, and Amorim's absolutely right. I think in a way, and it's a point I might ask Simon about, I think him being given that sort of like a vote of confidence. It wasn't just a vote of confidence from Ratcliffe.
It
was an endorsement of saying that next 3 years. Now, Amorim's come back and said, and quite rightly said, we don't get 3 years, we need to win football matches. But I bet you, for a second or two, that was like music to his ears, really. He's listening to that there. The owner of the football club has come in and said that. And immediately fans start to think, oh gosh, he's going to get a longer time. It's great. And it's, I don't know whether it's coincidence, but they go and win a game. They play with a lot of drive, which is great, and a lot of determination. And he said himself at the end of the game, what do you think won the match? For his spirit. Well, that's lovely to hear again. It genuinely is. And it takes what they call noise these days away from you for a while. It's lovely.
It's true, Simon, isn't it? The noise goes for the time being.
But he's on a roller coaster, isn't he? I mean, he gets smashed to pieces by Man City and the world is on him. He goes and beats Chelsea. All of a sudden, United are in ascendancy. They get destroyed by Brentford and put in an abject performance. All of a sudden, United are falling apart. And they've got 2 decent results. Sunderland, they should beat at home. They're a promoted side that's going well, but notwithstanding that, Old Trafford is Old Trafford. And they've beaten Liverpool. So he builds from it. I think most orthodoxy, despite the fact that I don't like to spend my time being confronted with orthodoxy, would have said, because no one could work out what Amorim's doing. No one can work out how you get to come into a football club and make it significantly worse, and yet still get support from the fans, get support from the owner. And that was the question. And everyone you spoke to doesn't quite know where Amorim really is and what he's all about. One thing doing it in the Portuguese league, another thing doing it at Man United. Yeah. And we had this to and fro last week about Ratcliffe, didn't we? About Ratcliffe coming out and saying, I'm going to give him 3 years. And the only person that really knows what's behind the scenes are the people that are seeing this young manager behind the scenes and what he's doing.
Of course. A bit of movement in the Rangers situation. We are now hearing, in view of the fact that Kevin Muscat no longer a contender for the vacant manager's position following the sacking of Russell Martin, we now hear here at talkSPORT that Danny Röhl is indeed set to be appointed as the next manager of Rangers. 36-year-old German from Zwickau, which is the old East Germany, but it's all one Germany in modern times. The former assistant at Leipzig, at Southampton, at Bayern Munich, Danny Röhl set to be appointed. So Simon, Messrs Patrick Stewart and the rest have taken somewhat a circuitous route here. I mean, it's up to them to interview who they want, having said that. But Gerrard's come and gone. Of course. Muscat's come and gone.
I don't think anyone's criticising them for interviewing people. I think people are pining on the fact that it seems to have found its way into the media for every twist and turn. Yeah. Which you'd like to think that you wouldn't want to have happen, and seemingly they wanted to. Now, I've heard very good things about this manager. You know, I spoke to Josh Windass about him when he was playing for him at Sheffield Wednesday. He really liked him. I think Barry Bannon spoke very highly of him. I think he did a good job there. He's got... he's worked with some very good managers. Whatever you think of Hansi Flick, he's one of the top managers around. Whether you think he was successful as a German national coach is a different matter. And so I My immediate reaction would be, I would imagine there'll be a degree of ambivalence from the Rangers fans. Because
I'll go stronger, man. I don't think many of them will have that. I mean, they were, many of them, as far as I was gathering, were looking to Gerrard to come back in for a second spell. That didn't happen. And then maybe there was a spring in their step when they heard about Muscat to a degree.
Yeah, Muscat having played for them as well too. Yeah, but I'm not so sure. I think that when Russell Martin was appointed, I think his style of play followed him in that sense up to Ibrox, and then perhaps the Ibrox fans were looking, listen, we must be winning at all costs, so that probably didn't go down all that brilliantly. However, I think they'll know much less about Danny Röhl and maybe prepared to give him a chance. They'll certainly know he's only had the one managerial job at Sheffield Wednesday. He has been an assistant, but overall,
you're right. His main body of work, Sheffield Wednesday,
yeah, absolutely,
led them to 12.
And because they know less about him in that sense, they might be prepared to say, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at the fact that in recent times they put a championship manager in there, in Michael Beale. That didn't work out well. And so it looks like a uninspiring decision for the fans. Now, that because they don't know Danny Röhl and they haven't seen much of him. And so I'm assuming this time round they will have done their proper research into what they're getting, why they're getting it, and what they think they're going to achieve. But all I can say is the players that I know that have played for him thought very highly of him. They responded to him very well, and there wasn't a lot for him to work with Sheffield Wednesday. He had to work with the backdrop of a very difficult football club and a difficult owner in a difficult time, didn't he?
Yeah. Martin, Danny Röhl, as we say here at talkSPORT, it's our understanding that he's set to be appointed now that Muscat is no longer in the race. What does Danny Röhl need to know about what he's getting into?
Oh, I think first of all, he would be a fool if he hadn't any preconceived notion about what he's going into. He knows he'll have to win football matches there, and I don't think that you have to be born and bred in Glasgow to know that you have to win football matches at the club. So that's it, really, as much as anything else. He'll go in. I'm not so sure what his philosophy is. That's nice to hear what Simon was saying, that the players who have played under him at Sheffield Wednesday think a lot of him. That's good to hear that.
Yeah.
But overall, he's got to change. He's just got to change a losing mentality at Rangers.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you were quite strong, Martin, earlier on, saying that there's a sizable number of Rangers players at the moment who, at the moment, really don't fit the jersey.
Not at all. They're not good enough to play for football for the football club.
Yeah.
It is still a really great football club. It is a great football club, and these players are just not up to it.
Interesting you say that.
Here's the point.
Go on.
Some of the players that might have come in might not know about the history of the club, might not know about what it is to win it up in Glasgow. But after a couple of weeks there, you soon find out. It's not. You don't have to go through a year of losing football matches to know what it's like. And all you have to do is listen to the reaction of the crowd when you go behind at Ibrox to know all these things. Listen, we all experience these things.
What you're saying was reflected in Jack Butland, the goalkeeper's post-match comments at the weekend when Rangers ended up at Ibrox drawing with Dundee United.
A story that we've seen a lot, and a feeling that we've felt a lot. So yeah, angry. It's obviously demoralising for everybody when you put in a first half like that where you see some real people sort of express themselves and, okay, we only scored one, we should score more, but a good performance, solid going forward. There was some exciting stuff going on. So to go from that to what happened between 1-0 and 2-1 down is, honestly, I would love to know exactly what goes through half the lads' heads at times, or us as a team, what goes through, how do we get ourselves in that position. But it's a story of the season, really. And what happened between 1-0 up and obviously going 2-1 down is nowhere near good enough, especially after putting in a first half performance like that.
I felt that he wanted to go even stronger than that, Mark, and maybe pull back.
He went strong enough. He did, absolutely. I'm glad he's divorcing himself from proceedings that's taking place, That's players for you. No question about it. Blame someone else, in the dressing room, sit and have a go at somebody else when in actual fact you've been not that good yourself. But I don't know whether he's not been that good in that particular game.
Right.
But all I'm saying is that
Yes.
the general review is what's going through players' heads. Yeah, well, do you know what? Why don't you find out? Why don't you go for a cup of coffee with them just after a training session and go and find out what's in their heads? See if they are capable of playing for the football club. See when they go a goal behind in a game that they have got the capabilities to pull it back. See if they are capable of going away from home up at Ross County or somewhere like this here and finding themselves in the mire and then pulling it round. Let's see what they can do. Let's see it. And that, when they're able to sort those things out, then they can call themselves Rangers players.
We're going to turn their attention to the number of Rangers fans who are calling in at this time, because maybe it was going to be Gerrard, then it wasn't. This is to take over following the departure of Russell Martin. Then it was going to be Kevin Muscat, and now it's not. Now it's going to be Danny Röhl, it would appear. I wonder what Kev, the Rangers fan, first up thinks of that. 03717 223344. Danny Röhl, what do you think, Kev?
No, because the thing is, Thelwell and Stewart have got to go, because all this is they're getting yet another yes man in that's going to bow to their will and their wants. Gerrard, are they interested in this tax rumour? That's a load of garbage, because you didn't fly Urife Bahrain, meet the chairman and the owner or the majority shareholder, whoever they want to refer to him as, and then from what we got from very good club media sources that aren't officially working for the club, but they've got inside info.
Yeah, but Kev, why have you already decided that Danny Röhl is already a yes man?
Because it's obvious with the fact that Kevin Muscat was coming and wasn't coming. Graham was signed, I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, then he met with Thelwell and Stewart, and suddenly he's not interested because of the recruitment side of things. Any manager that goes in there is going to be, yes, Kevin Thelwell, yes, Patrick Stewart, no, three bags full. That pair have got to get out of this club.
But they won't. They're not going to. They're not going to. You might have to adapt to life with them there and Danny Röhl in.
Well, obviously I'm not in football myself, so I've not much choice in the matter, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And they've got to go because they're not, Celtic aren't great. We're a hell of a lot worse. This should have been another season with an ideal opportunity to try and get ourselves into, at the very worst, a better title fight. But the way it's going, we're going to be lucky to make top six at this rate. And genuinely, despite how much it pains me to say it, because obviously I want Rangers to win all the time, if Hearts do somehow do what is pretty much unthinkable and split us and actually win the league, it can only be good for Scottish football, in theory.